a great way to start talking about my work and the themes that I'm thinking about in this show is to actually talk about what the piece is and what it's made out of and why did I make it. So this piece here is called Orbit. That's a name I borrowed from an artist whose name is Mona Hatoum. And she makes these great big kind of globe sculptures that she calls orbits. So I was inspired by seeing that piece, but I actually started collecting this rebar before I saw that piece. So this is something I'll do. I'll find a found object. I go to a place I frequently go to walk to find materials is Iona Jetty. While I was out there recently, I started finding all these like chunks of rusted and bent up rebar. And then what I did was I welded them back together into a loop or an orbit. And then I made molds of perfect spheres and cast concrete directly onto here, mostly at spots where I had done the weld. When I see a site that's in transition or that's being demolished, you'll often see, that a building's been knocked down and there'll be these sort of chunks of concrete left over with the kind of tangled rebar holding on to it, and it starts to do these kind of like gnarly, kind of abstract sculptural things. So I was thinking about that. I was thinking about the end of something's life cycle, the rebar, the concrete, just because that's finished its life. It's not necessarily gone from our world, right? These things keep orbiting around. This rebar thought it was done its life. And then I come along and I'm like, no, you're not done yet. You have one last task here, and that's to become a sculpture so that we can think about you. One of the challenges that I set for myself in my practice is if I'm working with a found object, especially something that's like maybe trash, I'm looking for a way to sort of elevate that. I'm looking for a way to really honor it, to kind of like give it this new life. You can have that moment of thinking or of looking where you're like, oh yeah, this is bringing in things from my life. We're always kind of refreshing here and rebuilding, and that can bring you to that moment. What you want when you make an artwork is for people to stop and look. And so if that's a way that I can extend looking by creating that moment of confusion, then that's really fantastic. These works come out of a residency that I did in 2018 on Malcolm Island, which is north of Vancouver Island. And while I was there, I was doing a lot of beach combing, and I kept finding these styrofoam objects everywhere. I kept finding a lot of stuff. And the really interesting thing about it was this town, Sointula, where people just kind of dump whatever they want into the ocean. When they used to get rid of cars, it's expensive to get a dead car off the island, so you would just roll it into the ocean and let the ocean slowly kind of eat it. And so when you're walking around the beaches there, you'll occasionally encounter the last bits of those cars, which are the engine blocks. They're so rusted out and they're so weird looking. They look like almost like sea monsters or something, some sort of unknown object. The way it goes is I find a piece of styrofoam on the beach or in some sort of coastal area, and it is already a form. It's already sort of has its own interesting shape to it, and it breaks up and it gets loose in the ocean, and then it goes on this journey, traveling around from who knows where. The ocean takes it and it reformulates. It's almost like this kind of unsanctioned collaboration. So that's, I think, was initially why I became attracted in these objects, and the more I kind of work with them, the more I feel like I can kind of revel in that weird space, which is sort of like, look at this waste object. Isn't it kind of beautiful and horrible at the same time?